Welcome, Kelly, to another Legal Tuesdays with the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Always a pleasure to have you.
Likewise, Joe. Thank you very much.
And today we have a pretty interesting topic for us to discuss. I think the audience is going to be pretty well informed about this topic. I know this happens in so many different ways, and we always have questions on how to deal with this kind of stuff. So looking forward to that. But before we get started, I would like to ask you to do two things. One is to introduce, let us know who you are, and also to provide us with a disclaimer.
Exactly. Yes, I am attorney Kelly Bagler, also known as the Queen of Business Law, Joe.
Awesome.
I have been practicing for over 17 years now, and my law firm, we focus on business formations and asset protection. And whatever information that I share on this show today does not create an attorney-client relationship. It's only for informational purposes. And if somebody wants further information on any particular topic that we're talking about today or in the past, they can call me directly or reach out to me directly.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Yes.
So with that, we'd like to start with our first question. And our topic today is about setting up family companies, bringing the family to the mix. It's always a great idea. I grew up in a family business. It gives us a lot of learning tools, but it also has its advantages and disadvantages of that. But I would like to kind of approach it from the legal perspective with your help. So our first question that we received was, how do you set up a family-based company or corporation?
A family-based company, if somebody obviously wants to start a business as a family, there is an entity called a closed corporation. A closed corporation actually acts like a regular corporation. However, you're not held to all the formalities that you would be held if it was a C corporation or an S corporation. So for example, the annual minutes. If you're a C or an S corporation, the corporate law states that you have to keep the entity completely separate from who you are. And how do you do that? Well, you have to have the proper documentation, internal documentation, plus you have to have annual minutes. Two sets, actually, one from the shareholders appointing the directors and the directors appointing the officers. I know sometimes, Joe, that this sort of, it sounds sort of out of the normal. It sounds funny because you are all the people involved.
Right.
But this is one way that the state, you can show the state that I'm keeping my company separate from who I am. So when your company gets sued, it's only the company and not you personally. So that's why you have to make sure that the corporation is completely separate from you as a person through following corporate compliance. Now, with a closed corporation, the state knows that family members will get involved. Family members are they don't have to follow the corporate compliance to a T, where they have to have the annual minutes. So that's one structure that is in place for families that do want to actually start a business together.
Okay. Well, that's a great answer. And with that follows the question, does this closed corporation has the other parts of it, or like a regular corporation? Like at least in California, you have the $800 and all the reporting. Are those still the same?
Absolutely, they are. California wants their money, Joe. So yes, they want their money. And to form it, you do have to file the articles with the state as well. So it's the same formation.
Same formation.
It is, yes, but it's just
a different entity.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And I'm okay. Very good. Now, once the company gets formed and it's created and it starts becoming successful, then the next step will be to issuing of the shares, right? So in this type of corporation, there will be shares.
Yes.
Okay. And same thing will apply. So they have to be in certain format that they have to be issued.
Exactly. And I have set up some family corporations. And the one thing that I always advise my clients is that to make sure that the shares are on a vesting schedule. Do not issue the shares outright to the individual family members. Therefore, for example, say we have 100 shares and we have 5 people in the family. Well, each 5 people, they're going to get some shares, but you don't give them all outright up front. Now, say one of them has a conflict with the other member and they walk away, but they're still a part owner of the company and they're not doing anything for the shares. So the shares should always be on a vesting schedule. The longer, the better. That way, you have the longevity of the family member staying vested in the business and working for those shares. So you can give each family member an X% of shares at the end of 1 year, and then they'll get some more at the end of 2 years. And you can continue this for 5 years. And within the 5 years, you will find out who's going to stick around, who's really vested in the business, and who's not.
Okay, that's a good approach. Instead of just giving everyone the same amount and then finding out that people, some people are just taking advantage of it and the other ones are working really hard.
Exactly. Yes. It happens all the time.
Of course it does. Of course it does. The other part is, now we're talking about this corporation. Can the same thing be done under an LLC?
With an LLC, Joe, you're not allowed by law to reserve the units in the LLC. So the LLC isn't allowed to hold units for future issuance. That's the massive difference between a corporation and an LLC. With an LLC, you have to issue them all out at that same time.
Okay, good.
5 members, all 5 get equal share and they have it outright. With a corporation, however, the corporation can hold shares and it can be put on a vesting schedule. So for those purposes, a corporation is a better entity rather than an LLC.
Okay, which that brings another question though. Is a closed corporation, can you also have a closed LLC?
No.
Okay, good to know.
Good question.
Great question.
Good question, yes.
As the business becomes more successful, is having a family trust a good way to go?
It's always, anytime anyone has an entity, it can be a corporation or an LLC or a partnership. It can be any type of legal entity where you actually file with the state to be registered as an entity. It's always a great idea to have a living trust. I would love to come back, Joe, maybe on a different Legal Tuesdays and really talk about the benefits of having a living trust. And there are 2 types, and what the differences are between them. But the having a family trust, yes. So you can have a trust with a married couple, and you can have a trust with the minor children with the married couple, or if you're single, you can have a single trust as well. And whatever shares you own in a company, those would be held by your trust. So just in case something happens to you and you do not have a trust, your shares will have to go through probate, which is a horrendous situation to go through, let alone the fees that you have to pay too. And again, we'll get into that next time.
Okay, well, that's a great topic for us to touch base on.
Yes.
Okay, I'll put it on the calendar and I'll see what kind of questions people come with.
Perfect.
All right, very good. And then there's as you have the company, the family members are owners of the company, so the principals of the company. But what if the company wants to also hire family members to work for the company? How would that work?
Well, there are certain advantages of actually having a family-owned business. And part of that advantage would be to get some tax advantages as well, and also to put into sort of a retirement plan. So as a family now, Joe, you can invest money into a 401k plan because it's an incorporated entity, and the family is vested, and now they're actually putting money away for their retirement, which is a beautiful thing. So definitely make sure that the family members are put on payroll, including the CEO, all the way down to the children whoever are going to work in the business. They should have clearly defined roles, especially the ones that are on payroll. But the beauty, and again, the advantage of having a family run business is when hard times hit, right? We've all just been through COVID. Some of us are still going through COVID. Businesses had to shut down because employees are not going to turn around and say, I'd like to invest my savings to get over this hump so we can move on to the next chapter as a family. Only family members are going to do that. They're going to invest their personal savings into the business. And so the advantages are it's stable, especially in downtimes. It can be very stable as a business. You're committed because you're vested in it. It's part of your family's business. And you're not only doing good for your family, but you're also doing good for the community too. In whatever community you live in, everybody knows that's the so-and-so family that has that, wonderful business. And then the flexibility of having a family run business is, again, you get to wear all these different hats. I'm sure, Joe, when you first started out and I first started out, we had to be the janitors, right? We had to be the CEOs, right? We had to be the admin people. So it's easier for family members to wear different hats at different stages, and then they're not going to put a fuss up, and they're not going to say that's not in my description. It's family, so you would do anything for family. But the one thing that I really love about a family ran business is you get to leave a legacy. You actually get to leave a legacy. So yeah, but definitely run it from a logistics standpoint. Run the family business as a business. Make sure everyone is on payroll. Make sure you have a great 401k plan so everyone can at least put into their retirement. And you'd be surprised, family members, they want to work even extra hard because now they have something to work towards. It's a beautiful thing.
The sense of ownership. Absolutely. Totally can see that.
Yes.
Now, and you mentioned earlier about the family business having to run as a business, and in my experience, that's been one of the obstacles of many of the family businesses that I work with in the business advising area, where they run the business as a family rather than the family business as a business, and I think that's it happens to be backwards. And really not effective. So how would you suggest, if you were advising a family who just started a family business under a close corporation, how would you advise them to on the flow of the business, the meetings and sort? What would you suggest?
Communication is key, especially with a family run business. You have to be able to communicate with every player involved. And there has to be defined roles, even though you're going to cross over, and that's perfectly fine. But as long as each sibling knows what they are in charge of, what are their strengths, right? That's what you're going to capitalize on. You're not going to say, oh, you're no good in this, and therefore your sister's going to take over. That's just putting someone down. But exactly. And it happens. Right. In families, it happens. But you really want to capitalize on their strengths, right? As a family, that's what makes you even stronger, is bringing all of your strengths to the table. And you have to communicate with each other. This will actually minimize any of the disadvantages of having a family run business, such as conflicts of interest between the family members. One sister doesn't get along with the other sister. Well, what's going to happen there? And then, especially if someone says, well, I'm not interested in being part of a family business, right? I'm not interested in that. But you want to include everyone until they themselves say, okay, this isn't for me. They have to make that choice so they don't feel left out. And that's when you really have to ask them, what skills are you bringing to the table? How can you help this family become even stronger and grow? And one of the massive disadvantages, Joe, like you said, is lack of structure. Right. So right from the beginning, you have to say, and again, blame it on the attorney. It's okay. I've been blamed 1,000 times. So the attorney said we have to do this. And trust me, that goes over really, really well. Right. So it's the attorney who is requesting this. You have to do it this way because of the attorney. And people listen when you say that. The attorney said we have to do that.
Got it. Well, I'll be using that for a while, Kelly.
Yeah, exactly, Joe.
Absolutely.
That is so cute. If I may, I just wanted to share some fun facts about family-owned businesses. So Estelle Lauder, she actually started her business in 1948 with her husband. And now it's a global cosmetic brand, right? So she did start with her husband. Right. And then another, all of these are very well-known family businesses. Walmart, it's a family business.
Correct.
Right. And then you got Ford Motor Company, family business. Dell Technologies, that was a family business as well. And then Tyson Foods. Tyson Foods is a family-run business. And all these, most of these actually companies have become public as well. So when families are deciding whether to start a business together, look at the massive upside of this. You can become one of these companies, you can become publicly traded, and all that hard work you put into it will show for decades and decades. I love it.
That's true. That's true. Because the family keeps the business moving even for generations. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. And you're not inclined to take more vacation or walk into work, because it's a Monday morning. You're going to really enjoy being part of something that you can grow together. It's a beautiful thing to see, Joe.
Excellent. I totally agree, Kelly. I totally agree. I do have one last question, and there's a conflict of interest, but I guess it's been answered by the first section, but I would like to ask it anyways, because that came in through one of our members. So ways to avoid, or if there is conflict and no conflict of interest when hiring family members to prevent the conflict of interest issue.
Because I don't see the conflict of interest being even a discussion point when you're hiring family members. If it's a family-run business, and you can hire family members.
Right.
For example, if it was a government-run entity, then there are rules for those types of businesses regarding nepotism, because they'll hire a family member and then they'll promote that family member. Then they will give contracts to that family member too. So the conflict of interest when it comes to family members, that's limited to really government agencies that can run wild with this. Offering favors to relatives. But when it comes to a family-run business itself, there is no conflict of interest at all. As long as the person brings the skills to the table and they're qualified to do what you're hiring them to do, there's no conflict.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured that, since at the beginning we established that was a closed corporation.
Yes.
Now, and you mentioned that so the conflict of interest, if we take this one question further, only applies in government-run entities, or there's any other type of entity where our business owners should be careful about conflict of interest?
It would depend on the business itself. Sometimes, definitely government-run, definitely, that they have rules against nepotism. Sometimes in private sectors, depending on whether they have this as their policy, they can either say they can hire family members, or they can actually have it in the handbook that they don't hire family members. So it's really company by company. There isn't a standard, and there's no legal authority on this, whether you have to or you cannot. Okay.
Yes, I noticed that on the IRS handbook on the nonprofits, but the nonprofit can actually select to hire or contract with members on family members or non-family members, but it's the board who decides. So that's
Exactly.
okay.
And especially with nonprofits too, it's all about disclosure. You have
Okay.
to disclose whether there's any type of relationship within the board. Mhm.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, that was 5 questions that we went over on that show today. Excellent
was quick.
information.
Thank you. Thank
Yes, always goes so fast. So we're a few minutes over, but it's totally worth it. Totally worth it. Any closing remarks, Kelly?
Just that America is born on the backbones of entrepreneurs, including families that have started businesses. I absolutely love entrepreneurship, Joe. Huge, huge fan of it. And America is just going to get even stronger with more people starting their own businesses and not being dependent on the government. That's the last thing you ever want to do.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
Yeah.
That's our main focus at the chamber, is to making sure that everyone has the opportunity to even do one or the other, or to do both.
Exactly.
That way you have multiple sources of income. But anyways, always a pleasure, Kelly, for being on the show. And again, we'd like to, if you can, how can our audience connect with you?
They can call me. The number is 760-579-6789, or they can just email me directly, kelly@baglerlaw.com, or they can just reach out to you, Joe.
That's true.
You have all my information.
I have all your information. Or if
And
they
Joe,
want to get your book, they can just also go to Amazon and get your contact from there.
absolutely. There you go. Yes. Go Legal Yourself, 2nd edition. Fantastic book for anyone that wants to start, run, and grow their business. But I wanted to say, Joe, thank you so much for everything that the Chamber does for our veterans. We love veterans, and we do anything for them.
Well, I'm glad you love veterans. We like to be loved.
Yes.
Yeah. No, this is information that goes to our veterans and our military families. And we thank you for being such a great attorney and always putting things clear, concise, to the point. There is no spider webs that you have to go through. It's just very clear. Very, I love that. I love that, which is really hard to find.
Thank
So again,
you.
thank you, Kelly. And I will see you next month with our next phenomenal topic of trust, living trust, or partnerships. We'll decide it during the month. And so till then,
Until
thank you.
then,
Have a great week and great rest of the month.
thank you. You too, Joe. Bye.
Thank you, Kelly.